Good morning, Tavis. I know you have a haircut this morning. Big priorities. So we've got we've got an episode that we want to do, but we've got a little bit of life that are getting in the way. I say a little bit, a lot of it. A little bit of
You
news,
sound
a
a
little bit
little
of life.
jealous that I have hair and you don't. I don't know if
Well,
that's. I mean, do
I'm
you
not
trim your
jealous
own
of the.
beard, or do you go to a barber and get a shave and the beard trim?
No, I do it myself. I'm not jealous
Oh,
of the money you spend. That's ridiculous. My son goes and
yeah.
gets a haircut, and it's $40 or whatever it is, and $30, and especially if you go to those places that if it has anything to do with alcohol, I think there's one over at Grandscape that's,
hmm
scotch and scissors or something. Well, you just add another $20. That scotch is not free. So
Yeah,
it's
you're
a
you're paying
cool,
for it one way or another, right?
it's basically your massage day. It's the equivalent of going and getting a massage or a pedi or
Yeah.
something like that for the ladies. So yeah, you're going in and, pampering yourself a little bit. So no, I'm not jealous of the money that I've saved up through the years. I started shaving I just shave with a normal razor every day in the
Yeah.
shower. And I've gotten to where no big deal. I don't remember the last time I cut my skull doing that. And then I do the beard. It gets out of hand every once in a while. So I've got the right scissors and all that stuff. So I feel like I do a decent job of it. Every
Yeah.
once in a while, I
Oh,
look at a picture and think, I'm kind of crooked. So I've debated on going to a real person every once in a while just to kind of you know, get it
just
straightened
get the
up. So
beard trimmed up, and yeah, it
yeah,
is nice. I mean, I trim my own and do that, but when I do go to the barber and they do the straight razor and trim everything up and you know
yeah. I
fade
will
the
say
beard and
if I ever really get into a pinch of career wise, I think the people that are really killing it are the dog haircut people because we drop
oh
so much
gosh.
money on those stupid dog haircut people, and it's next to impossible to find a decent one.
No,
So
it's definitely really ridiculous. I mean, and we have two, and I guess you do too,
we had three,
that
yep,
have to
until
be groomed.
recently, and yep, now
Oh
we had
gosh,
three that
yeah,
needed to be groomed. Now we have two, but yeah, every time we go to the groomer, and I think it's well over $200.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, it adds up. So if I can do my part by just shaving my head with a razor that I get delivered once a month for four
I
dollars or
hear you.
whatever that is, I'm
Well,
all.
my
But
my oldest son gets his hair cut and his beard cut, like, I don't know if it's once a week. I
yeah,
know
he's
it's
always
less
pretty
than.
clean looking. He's like a
Yeah,
Kristaps Porzingis who's just like, dude, you got a guy on staff or something because he's.
yeah,
It looks like you have a clean haircut every time you see him for sure.
yeah. That's just part of his. That's part of his routine. So I'm not that. I'm uh, I'm good if I get in there every 45 days. That's
Yeah,
usually about right for me. Because
when it
again,
comes,
I could trim up or
yeah, when it comes to that
use the
stuff,
clippers on
I
my
mean,
beard if I need to.
wearing scrubs for 10 years and having a uniform basically, and then when I come home I pretty much have a uniform because I wear the same two or three things every time I come home. I
Yeah,
am completely fine with that. The super simple one look, give me a whole wardrobe full of one thing and I would, the who does that, Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs did that. I would be all for that. Just the normal pants, black shirt, something like that. So anyway, all right, let's get into some real estate. I know you've been busy. You've got several flips. You got one up in Aubrey. You've got one on the market, Sunscape. I talked to a client I think that had called and left a message for you last night. I called them to do a follow up. They called the sign, and evidently they do have a realtor. They were
uh,
just driving around and they wanted to get some info on it. But anyway, but I know you've got a lot of irons in the fire and doing a lot of good business right now.
yeah, yeah. It's picking up. I mean, that's what we needed to do. It's still a little bit slower than I would like it to be. Because uh, you want that pipeline full. So
Yeah,
until I get the next one under contract, to the next acquisition under contract,
yeah,
you're like, okay, I've got this timeline, and when there's going to be a lull period when we're not, when we don't have a project going. So
yep, yep. Well, to that end, I haven't said it on here. We had this conversation the other day. It's been a big week for the Hines household. My son graduated. Your son graduated, and then Luke took off for Texas Tech on Monday, and then he flies to Wyoming Wednesday. So I said bye to him Monday, and it's going to be 46 days or something until we see him again. So that's the longest stretch we've gone. So that was a hard day for Dad, but Tavis and I hung out. We're going to talk about what we did on Monday later in this episode. Really cool field trip type listing appointment that we went to. But I also told Tavis I am officially done with therapy for now. I'm
Drum
not going
roll,
to. Yeah,
fireworks.
that's right.
We need all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
going off right now.
We've talked about it. I've talked about it for a long time. I've had my real estate license for almost 4 years. I'm about to be taking my 2-year CEU, to keep my license. And so I think I've had it for almost 4 years, and I've been working towards going full time. And I guess it's not completely fair to say it's full time. I'm doing the social media management, which has really picked up. That's been a great blessing. I met a good friend who owns a company that does social media management, and she was just needing some help, ironically, with the podcast. And so I said, well, I can help with the podcast. And then she said, well, what you do reels too, right? Would you mind doing this? Sure, I can do that. And then do you want to manage this one company's account? Sure, I can do that. So it just kind of snowballed into this, work that I've actually enjoy. And it goes hand in hand with the real estate stuff that we're doing and learning the skills of taking videos and doing the podcast. So anyway, it's been a nice compliment. So I'm doing that, but I'm not going to be doing therapy anymore. And I've got enough irons in the fire from real estate. I've got a condo that's supposed to be closing hopefully this week. That's been a little complicated, but we should be closing this week. I've got a couple more listings that are potentials. I've got a friend that wants to help, wants some help renting out a rental house. So yeah, we've talked about it. And so, yes, thanks to your help and a lot of people around me and, Karen being on board with me trying something different, I this week am an entrepreneur, a full-time entrepreneur, whether it's real estate or doing the social stuff. So I'm enjoying it. And it has been a long road, but man, therapy, I really like the work. But so last week, what happened was my car was giving me problems. And there was a day where I literally just couldn't see patients. I just called them and said, look, I got to take care of this. I can't see people. And so I sat at the house and just did other stuff and social stuff. And I had this just crazy peace and happiness about that day because I didn't have the pressure. I just knew I couldn't go do anything else. And so I was doing these other things. And I was at the house all day and I just felt this happiness. And maybe it was, I don't know, but that was just a real confirmation for me. It was like, I think I'm going to enjoy this. I think the stress that I've been carrying, trying to figure everything out has just been tremendous. And I just want to try it. And the social stuff is kind of giving me about that backstop to do it. And so I'm going to give it a go. So I appreciate all the support and the words of encouragement from you and everybody else. And we'll see what this chapter looks like. So we're going to get into one of our field trip here in a little bit, but why don't we talk about?
It was amazing to hear it, man. I've been waiting to hear that from you for quite some time. And
well, and you've helped me do the math and say, well, what if you did this? And what if you did that? And, the doors it's going to open up and just being able to go meet people and go to meetings at Keller Williams and actually learn the business more. And I'm just excited about a lot of that stuff. And now the responsibility is blocking my day, making sure I'm being efficient with certain things. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get into that routine and go with the ebb and flow of being entrepreneurial. But
another good thing, this is something if anyone's part of our office, but the Dallas Preston Road huddle that happens every morning at 8:30. It goes from 8:30 to 8:45. Is definitely something that you should jump into.
Okay.
It's just a motivating thing. Different people are talking every day, kind of quick, ramp up, just a good way to start your day every day. So
yeah, I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I haven't ever done any of that. I really never went through orientation there. There's a lot of paperwork stuff I probably just need to start over with and say, okay, how do I do this right? So there's a lot of things I need to be doing, but I'm hoping part of this is that we get to do a lot more social. I get to follow you around, make some better videos about your properties and my properties. And, I posted a video about the truck yard in Grandscape that I had done several months ago. And, my video friend, Josh, we're talking about doing more of those. So I'm just excited about it. It doesn't automatically just mean money flowing in, but I do think that it'll be enjoyable.
Yeah.
and I think valuable to people. So I'm super excited about it. So all right, so let's talk about just a little bit of a market update. The Dallas market is stagnant, like we've talked about. It's stagnant in the high sevens. The mortgage environment is in the high sevens, and our median sales price right now for the whole MLS is 385. Collin County, it's over 500. We do have new listings in May was 17,000, and then the closed sales in May was 10,000. So we have more new listings than we have sales, and that means that the days on market and the month supply is going up. But we've said that there's a lot of movement, and the numbers are in the thousands, and there's a lot of things going on. And I can tell it in your business that you're busy. You're doing a lot of things. I don't know if you've seen this. The shows depending. We look at this a lot of times. Shows depending is right in Collin counties. The median is 10. The 9 overall. So 9 or 10 shows depending. That's been really consistent. No matter how many houses are for sale, it's kind of weird. That's been a number that's been pretty consistent.
That's actually a really good statistic, right? I mean, and we've
Yeah, I
talked
think so.
before about 10 showings to one offer. So
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean
If
it's
that's the average, and that should be a huge thing out there for anybody that's like, oh, I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna price it here.
yep,
It's fine.
yeah,
let's let's see what happens. I'm not in a rush. All of the normal stuff that people say when
yep,
they essentially price their property too high,
mm-hmm.
and then they don't get showings or the agent doesn't get showings. I don't know what's going on. So it's usually one of the first questions I ask somebody is like, well, how many showings have you had?
Yep,
If they tell me they've had 20 showings, well, then it's something else, right? If they tell me, we've had a couple, well, it, you're priced too high. You're
yeah.
not getting people to the door. People
If you've
are
had
making a
20 showings
decision.
and you're not getting an offer, your house smells like cat, or you have some foundation issue at the
Yeah,
back of the
you're getting
house that
people in the
you can only
door,
see when you
but
walk in. Yeah,
you're getting people in the door, but something misled them there and turned them away.
yeah.
So
But if no one's
if
coming
you're
in the
not
door,
getting,
it's a great chance. It's not it's not the agent's fault for not marketing it properly, or let's go ahead and buy an ad here and there. Most likely, not to say that I can't do anything, but
yeah,
price drives everything. Price is super important, the most important thing, I believe.
well, now it's the thing is because of Zillow. Like Zillow used to have a lag time to it, and I think it still does to some degree. But we went live on that property in Dallas on Saturday,
Mm,
and I got a call. I mean, within 30 minutes of going live, I got a call from Zillow.
mm,
It was actually it was kind of one of those things that we can talk about it a little bit, but so what it was is it was a agent from Austin. Her and the husband was an agent, and the wife was like a CPA. Anyways, long story short, they're in contract with me now,
mm.
but um they were looking for a second home for themselves. They're licensed. He's licensed in Texas, but he didn't have MLS access in Dallas. So they saw it on Zillow. They popped up. They called me, asked to see the property. I was tied up with the graduation party and stuff, and so I said, "Let me see what I can do." I sent the lead over to an agent out of our office. She set it up. She went over there, showed them. They didn't give her a lot of information. She followed up with them. They wanted comps, all of that. And then they called me and they're like, "Oh, so sorry for misleading you. My husband's an agent. We just didn't have MLS access." And so,
Yeah,
of course, they wanted the house, but now the agent, was put out, and unfortunately was kind of left like, well, what do you mean? Why didn't they tell me?
right.
Yeah, so it's frustrating. I mean, just be transparent, people. Like we've had this conversation. I ended up paying her for her time and her showing time, and I think she was bummed out on the situation, and I get it. I would be too, and I maybe should I ask more questions, but at the end of the day, it was they should have told me. Like
Yeah.
if I'm in another market, I think you remember this when I just was doing that deal in San Antonio
Yep.
several months ago. My first conversation when I talked to an agent there is, "Hey, I'm an agent. I'm licensed. Here's my information, but I don't have access to your MLS. I'm in
Yep.
the Dallas market, right? Can you work with me? Can you help me?
Yeah.
And that's the first conversation. I mean, at the end of the day, I wouldn't even had to call this other agent. All they had to tell me is, "Hey, I'm an agent in Austin. Can I send you my agent information, and would you give me access to the property?"
Right. Yeah.
Simple enough.
Well, and I
Or, "Hey,
think
is
now,
there a way I can access the property without a Supra?"
yeah. When I think
Uh,
moving forward with more and more people probably going unrepresented with all the NAR stuff that's happening, and as we go through the summer, supposedly that's going to start having more and more impact on actually how we're doing business. So we'll see. They say July, August is probably when you're going to start seeing some of that. But you're going to have more and more buyers just calling, asking questions. I know I saw something on our Keller Williams Facebook page the other day, someone wanting a bunch of information, and I just think it's probably what we're just going to have to get into that habit of, okay, who are you? Are you licensed? Are you with someone? Going through
right.
all of that qualifying stuff and just making that a part of the normal thing. But yeah, I mean, if you're an agent, I would think that would kind of be a part of it.
Well,
But
even like even like the lead I sent you yesterday. I mean, why bother calling me if you have an agent? Your
yeah,
agent should have that information. You know.
well, and I think it's one of those deals where everyone says they have an agent, or I think that's a go-to. And so I do think that sometimes maybe they have someone in their back pocket, or they have a friend or someone that's sort of helping them out, and that's a way out of conversations when they don't want to talk
Yeah.
to you anymore. Oh, I've got an agent, because I called her back and she was wanting some info, and I said, well, it's under contract. I said, but if what are you looking for? Well, I'm happy to help you out. Well, I do have an agent. And so I maybe sometimes people think if they call the sign, they're going to get a discount if they can just go directly to the source.
Yeah.
Or I'm not, and again, I think we're going to have to learn how all that works, because so many people are just not terribly educated on the system and how it works.
Thank
And
you, NAR lawsuit.
yeah, so I think that's just going to get more and more complicated, and trying to be able to navigate those things and that sort of thing. And how much information are we going to be sending to people?
Well, it
You
goes
know,
back to, like people in the past, right, used to have that theory. If I go on in represented to a builder and I negotiate on my own, I can get a better deal because then the
right,
builder doesn't have to pay an agent 3%.
right, right,
And meanwhile, the builder is like over there going, "Ha ha, I got
yeah,
one."
yeah,
They don't know what they're doing. I've got an unrepresented buyer in here.
yeah,
I could give them these incentives. They don't have to abide by any rules. They're not licensed.
yeah,
They don't have to follow any guidelines or ethics or or any kind of protocol. They represent themselves.
yeah.
At the end of the day. So, and
I
most
think
of the
it'll be
time,
prudent to. I think
the
it'll
agent
be,
fees that builders pay are already in like their marketing budget. So it's
yeah,
not even like
it's part of it.
yeah. And I mean, it's an incentive. Like, and I mean, at the end of the day, if you come in unrepresented, and you end up buying, that's fine. The builder's usually going to get more out of you than what they want. They're usually going to be able to get you to use their lender. They make money there. They're going to be able to, you know, talk you into incentivizing you with a set of blinds or something instead of giving you a discount or closing cost or things like that they
Yeah,
work in
yeah,
versus having an agent that can pull comps, that can run numbers, that can dial into it a little deeper, that essentially can look at a recent sold. And like, for instance, was it you and I that were looking at one of those recently? It was in a new subdivision, and I think we were comparing it to maybe a listing, a potential listing, and then we had to go back into it and look at the recent builds. And
yeah.
when we
That was
did
that
that,
one that we were comping up, maybe doing a scratch build up in I think McKinney. That was at downtown McKinney, and there was a new neighborhood right around the corner. I think we
okay.
were looking at. Yeah,
And so, yeah, when we were doing the math on it, we went in and found that okay, it sold for 400,000, but then when you look through the bottom of it on MLS and it tells you seller paid concessions,
mm.
the numbers were like 25,000, three
Yeah, because
thousand, 30,000, forty
the
thousand
builder was
dollars.
Yeah, the builders
that it
keep
was
them in there.
giving them for buy downs and different incentives, and nobody's going to see that when you look at the market sales price. When even if Zillow reports it or anything else, it's going to say 400,000. It's not going to say, 360. So, but an agent can see that. So,
All right. Well, a little bit of news kind of lends towards that. Um, Open Door in Nashville. It's a marketing ploy, but Open Door is one of these iBuyers, and Zillow tried this, and the market is just getting. Talk about uneducated buyers and sellers. I do. There's just a lot of learning that people have to do. Well, Open Door is one of these. It'll send an offer, and they say it's a preliminary offer. But a lot of times, these companies will mail things out, and they look like a check. Almost like, hey, here's your money. And so they actually are doing this marketing thing in Nashville, where they have a truck that drives around, almost like an ice cream man, a home buying ice cream man,
oh wow,
drives around neighborhoods and gives preliminary offers to home buyers. It's
sounds
based
like
on
you need to become an ice cream man, Ashton.
Yeah, I could do both. I
Add
could
that
be
to your resume.
the agent. Yeah, just do ice cream and then ask, "Hey, what about your parents? Have they thought about selling?" That'd be a great lead in.
Yeah,
That
you could brand the ice cream wrappers or something, and do
yeah.
something that's
Yeah, subsidize the ice cream so it's a little cheaper and everyone wants to come out, and then you take it back to your parents, and that's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll get into that. So, but yeah, Open Door is doing that in Nashville. They have basically an ice cream truck, marketing truck, driving around giving people preliminary offers on their homes.
what you
Now,
do is you tell the kids that they get free ice cream if they get your parents outside to talk to you and have a conversation about selling their house.
use the kids as sort of just
Yeah.
decoys.
Instead of going in and asking for money, you say, Mom, he needs to talk to you so I can get
Hey,
free
mom,
ice cream.
there's this large bald man out here giving away free
Just
candy to kids.
listen to his 2-minute pitch.
I think I would end up in jail. Somehow this is not going to go well. This is not going to go well. I don't think I'm going to make people happy.
They gonna, it's going to be all posted all over next door. This
Oh yeah,
pedophile on an ice cream truck
beware
disguising
of the
himself
creepy
as a
realtor. He
house
says he's a
buyer, but
realtor. Yeah, he's a realtor, but he's giving away free candy to kids. Yeah. So anyway, Open Door is trying that. I thought that was interesting. Local Subaru actually is moving a very large office to our area. It's the second largest office in the North America. They have their headquarters, I think, in Connecticut, but they're moving here. Toyota moved their North American headquarters here a few years ago to Plano. I believe this is going to Las Colinas or Capel, Subaru, and so yeah, that was going to be really cool, and it'd be neat if this area became kind of a car hub, and a lot of that intellectual property stayed in the area, and
mhm.
more automobile people came. You have Tesla down in Austin, which is neat. And so it's not that far off to think that maybe this Austin, Dallas, maybe Houston area could become headquarters to huge places. So that'll be interesting to watch go up. And then the other local thing that was interesting to me, I mentioned I made a video for Truck Yard over in Grandscape. It's on YouTube. I think we did a really good job with it. Josh helped film that several months ago. And I'd like to do more of that. I'd love to get you in on that, on some of those videos. Truck Yard's a great concept, and it started down, I think, not Deep Ellum, but maybe Lower Greenville. And so now they're actually opening one up in Richardson, I think near Beltline in 75. There's an outdoor beer garden somewhere over there
Mhm.
that was only lasted about a year. So the space is there, and
Ah,
Truck Yard's taking it over, and they just do an awesome job. It's such a cool vibe to go over there, just sit
well, they
outside.
have a name. They have a name behind them now too. But yeah, I've
Oh
seen
yeah,
that beer garden, and I kind of always wondered, like, you know, what is that? Because
yeah,
beer garden is kind of generic, right, in the name,
yeah,
but they'll
yeah.
probably
So
do well. It's a good location.
well, and we'll know it. You will be able to see it because the random fact in this news story was that they have applied and been approved for Richardson's first Ferris wheel. So, as a part of their shtick at the place, they're going to have a Ferris wheel at the beer garden, which is
Oh
kind of
wow.
funny. But and Richardson, I guess, has never had a full time Ferris wheel. So there you go, Richardson. Thank Truck Yard. That'll be fun to watch go in and it's close enough for us so we can go enjoy it. Maybe we can shoot a video there and just be
And that
Truck
was
Yard's
it was such a
videographers.
that little pocket where that is was like such a little like industrial like bunch of auto shops and
Hmm.
tire shops and stuff like that,
Well, that's right near
on the campus.
Lamborghini. It's a weirdest,
It's
like it's
across
a
the street,
crazy,
yeah,
yeah, across,
but
well, and near
well,
Como, near the Como motel that I wanted
yes,
to buy.
yeah,
But yeah, right across there, it's just this sort of odd, just run of 1960s and
yeah.
70s
Basically,
flat roof
Spring
offices.
Valley and 75 on the west side of the highway,
Yeah. So yeah, it's
southbound service road.
an interesting area. But Richardson, I've likened it to Austin. They've just got a really kind of keep Austin weird vibe to it, and really neat little pockets with. They got Lockwood Distillery and just some Alamo Draft House, that area over there. Really cool. I really like Canyon Creek area and Richardson. They've got a lot of good things happening there. So, well, I know you've got to get a haircut, but let's talk a little bit about one of our favorite topics, which is comping. Don't tune out just yet, because Tavis and I went out to Keller, and I have a listing appointment out in Keller. I have an old coworker whose parents are looking to sell. They have lived at this property for 50 years. He built it custom 50 years ago. He was a military, he was an Air Force pilot. He became an anesthesiologist, had a great career, has lived on this property. I think at one point they said it was a lot more than that. I think it may have been 15, 20 acres, some close to that. And
Hmm.
then through the years, I think he got a divorce at one point, and his ex-wife sold off some of that property, but he ended up with these 5 acres right in the middle of Keller, really close to a lot of beautiful developments, including a house, which I wish we could link to somehow, that has a literal golf course on it. This house, I think it's probably a 9-hole, par three course, and it's no
It was
spare
amazing.
course. It looks like the guy owns a golf course management company or something, because these looked like the most legit greens and fairways in a little neighborhood
Yeah.
you've ever seen. So
Well, he had all the equipment, and then
yeah,
in his basically in his metal building, right? His shop, if you will, all the like golf course equipment was right there. Then he had those two cinder block, areas right there at his driveway,
yeah,
um, where he can, call in a load or dump truck, and they could drop, fresh sand
yeah.
that was
It
piled
looked
up
like
there
an
or
actual golf course that just ran out of his front
facility.
yard. But
Yeah.
then his house is beautiful. It's probably 6,000 square foot house. It looks amazing and has a fountain out front, and it was the coolest. But anyway, so that house is on this street. And then there's another large tract that they're trying to sell individual lots to, and haven't taken off yet. So this brings us all to this to say this is an extremely unique property. And this house is 50 years old. They've done some renovations to the exterior about 15 years ago. They redid the stucco, new air conditioning unit, new roof. It has a large barn on it where he has multiple cars. He tinkers with cars. It's kind of his hobby. So he's got that set up. There's tons of trees on the property that are not well kept. So there's a lot of land work that would probably need to be done. Not a lot of land work, but it's going to take some work to actually make it right. So is it move in ready? Technically, yes, someone lives there, you can move in, but a modern family, are they going to move in and just take over? Probably not. I mean, anyone
Yeah.
moving into this house is going to
Well,
want to do
hold on.
extensive stuff.
I have to back that up because
Okay.
you had led me along enough to make me feel like it was in better showing condition than really what it was. So
Uh-huh.
when I walked in, I was like, this looks like investment properties I look at every
Yes.
day.
Yeah.
And that's really where it fit its bill. I mean, this thing is not going to be anything near close to uh listing
Move-in
ready.
ready. Right, right. Definitely not listing ready,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. Well, sorry if I misled that part. The house itself is 3,600 square feet, about, and it's not a mid-century modern, but it's got a lot of neat features. It has this really cool fireplace area that I've never seen anything like it. About a 3-foot walkway behind the fireplace with floor to ceiling bookcases that you need a real ladder for. It made this really neat area. So I think someone could renovate it. So this is the debate, trying to find value, trying to go ahead and like, hey, what would we list this for? So Tavis, walk us through. I know we got a little bit of time here. Walk us through your thought process, because this was a really different comping exercise, because we had to take into account land, we had to take into account the house. There's no real immediate comp next door that was 5 acres and a decent house. So go about your thought process on comping something so unique like this.
Yeah, so we ended up looking at this, two ways. One, improved acreage, properties with a build out, or properties that have at least something 1 acre or above, with a residence or a house on that would be considered as improved property or improved acreage. And so that's how I first ran it, and I looked at it within a half-mile radius, and then kind of opened it up to a 1 mile radius to kind of get a better feel. A lot of comps right off the bat were newer builds. So you find stuff that's, built within the last 10, 15 years. Mind you, this property, is 50 years old at this point in time. So you have to kind of take that in consideration. You can't just jump in and look at a home that was built 2 years ago and say, oh, yeah, this is a great comp, and we're going to
Mm-hmm.
compare it, because it's not going to work that way. Just like if you were looking at a standard property, you would have to account for that being a new build against a 50-year-old home, right? So it's the same concept there. And then we looked at it from, unimproved land, and trying to look at things that were an acre plus. And fortunately, we found a property that was just south of there, a couple lots actually, that ended up being 15 acres of land, um, and it sold here recently within the last year.
On the street.
And so that was a really good indicator of a property that sold with no improvements on it, just sold as vacant land, and the intent was to subdivide and sell that lot, those
Yeah.
lots out individually. So more of a development play.
And that purchase
And
gave
then
us a real good baseline on acreage. So that was sort of our
right,
bottom dollar. If we were just selling it per acre, at least
that
that
was
was
the
our
the
bottom.
least amount, yeah, per acre that we could find. Mind you, it was also the largest amount of track, so therefore it has a little bit of. Uh, we know that some of the smaller tracks were selling for more per acre versus
Mm-hmm.
that being 15 acres. So we knew that, but it gave us a bottom line number, because the other thing that this seller had is a neighbor that wanted to buy 1 acre from that tract of land out of the
Mm-hmm.
5 acres. And so with that being considered, they needed us to kind of give them a cost per acre that they could potentially talk to the seller about.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, that opens up a whole nother can of worms that maybe for a different time that we can talk about on our podcast, as far as how subdividing land works and what goes into that.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, we had to kind of break this down and compare it. And again, I hadn't walked the property yet, so I didn't really know what I was up against. I found a couple properties that were in the 80s, that were improved land, and the number looked pretty good. I mean, they were very livable, 80s properties that were on smaller acreage, about 2.5 acres versus 5 acres. And so I actually had a higher expectation of what this property could potentially be worth, or is worth now, before we got there. And as I got there, I realized, okay, this property needs work. And they've got years of stuff in this home. It had a lot of really cool architectural details, but it also had a lot of deferred maintenance. Even though they
Mm-hmm.
did the stucco, even though they did the metal roof, we learned as we were there. Originally, it had a flat roof, so this home was actually built in a contemporary style of architecture, to basically play on the coattails of mid-century modern. This was built, I believe, in 1971, is
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
gathered, or the early 70s. So it had a lot of elements. In fact, I mean, the whole living room, fireplace, architectural details, the bookcase behind there, all the windows, the super tall ceilings, a lot of it was like super cool. Like I
Yeah.
was like, man, a lot of this is like original stuff that I would keep. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
really nice wood that they used. I don't know if it
Mm-hmm.
was alder, like clear alder that they used, because it didn't have a lot of grain in it. Um, had a lot of cool stuff. But I mean, mind you, it had 50 years of buildup and clutter, and
Well, and just the
not to
structure of the kitchen was really closed off, and then the master bathroom was
yeah,
tiny.
well,
It's
not
just,
to mention all the cats.
yeah, a lot of
That we
cats.
had to be very careful because they had cats segregated throughout the house. So they were closed off in certain rooms and we couldn't let them out.
Yeah,
So so that might give you guys a visual out there as far as like what we were walking into. But anyways, net is we had to look at this from two different approaches, and so we were able to put together. The MLS tool that I like to use now is called a Cloud CMA. The benefit of that is it really breaks down not only line items to kind of compare properties, but then it gives you the full report, and you can customize this. You could fully customize it. You can put as much info into it as you want or take away some. And I think even dummy down to the way I like it, I still think that the report's like somewhere around 40 pages, right?
yeah,
So it's really nice if you're presenting it to a client like you were, um, that you can really give them all of the details instead of just looking at like a line item quick CMA that just gives you price points and dollar per foot to look at. This really allows you to kind of compare and contrast it, and then the consumer can look at it. I felt like it went really good as far as sitting through the consultation. I think
yeah,
you did a really good job breaking it down for them, and I think they were very reasonable in gathering information. It's hard to tell sometimes in that situation what somebody's expectation is of what their value of land is,
yeah.
right?
And I
Um,
didn't get the impression that they had really researched Zillow or had a neighbor that said it's worth this or that. I really don't think they had much of an idea of where they. And so we were almost backing into this. Okay, what do you need it for? They're wanting to move into a smaller home in Bedford with their daughter. They need some money to live on. I mean, we didn't mention that the husband is 91. Is that what he told us? He's
Yeah,
91.
he's 91, and
He's
he
out
worked up until he was 84.
86, 84 as a physician. He was out trimming trees. He's been all this storm has, there's limbs everywhere. He's been out trimming trees. He's tinkering with these cars all the time. So, but I mean, 5 acres of land just becomes overwhelming, and it's just a lot of maintenance. And the house is a large house, and so they're just to the point where like we can't really handle this anymore. But
Yeah,
that being said,
it
it's
was
just going to be a
overwhelming.
lot.
I mean, to
Yeah.
try to walk through it, I mean, the grass was 2 feet tall. There wasn't even a walkway. I didn't even know there was a front door in the house until we
Mm,
walked through the inside, and I was like, "Oh,
yeah.
here's the front door,"
Yeah.
because there was no more walkway
Right. Yeah.
leading from the driveway to the front of the home. Right, we came in through the garage.
Hmm.
And then, the amount of debris that was built up on the roofs and, the trees overhanging was just a mess,
Yeah.
and like it just would take so much cleanup.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. To get it
and like you
MLS
said,
ready, I
like
think is
2
going to
weeks
be.
of cleanup of just trimming trees and cutting grass just to get it to be like presentable on the outside.
Yeah. I mean, and so it's one of those from an agent, and I know we got to go. You got to go get freshened up, but as an agent, these are one of those that you do earn your keep a little bit, because I think I'm going to end up helping them, organize an estate sale, but it's not a normal estate sale. They have a lot of stuff inside. Then they have this whole barn. I think they have close to 9 different cars, some really cool classic cars
Yeah,
in there, and valuable stuff. And it's not just stuff that they can just throw up on Facebook Marketplace, and they're not Facebook Marketplace people. So a lot of these tools that I would use to just try to simplify my life, they don't really have. And so I think this is one of those unique situations where a lot of my clients I worked with in home health are very similar to them, being able to be empathetic with how long it takes them to decide on certain things and trying to walk them through and
absolutely.
do what's best for them.
I think
And
you, I think you did a really good job. I tried to, just kick back and let you do your thing, and I think you did a great job you know, of facilitating, the appointment. And at the end of the day, here's the thing: as a real estate agent, so many people get so caught up in trying to do a listing presentation and sell themselves.
mm,
At the end of the day, you know, when you can provide a solution to somebody's necessity and something that somebody needs, that's when you make a sale,
mhm.
right? When you can fix a problem for them that they need, and you're the person to do that. That's when you win that situation, right?
Yeah.
That's when you win the listing appointment. And I think you did a great job of doing that, because at the end of the day, you were very relaxed. It was a very relaxed conversation. It was providing data and information so that they could have a better opportunity to make a decision of which direction they wanted to go in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And this was a really good situation because it was they could go the investment route. They could sell it as is tomorrow. We could get investors in there. We could go the private collection route. We could advertise it out there to, consumers that are really looking for a 5 acre tract of land in Keller and Keller ISD, that want to build their dream home on. We could sell it to a developer that's looking to divide up 5 acres, and how many homes can they fit in this tract of land, that's looking for land. I mean, because it is harder to find, development opportunities, especially in a premium area like Keller.
Hmm.
One of the really cool things I liked about the lot was the elevation. When we drove up on top of that hill, I mean, there were so many trees you couldn't really see, but we had a really cool line of sight, from the elevation that we were at. So
Yeah. Driving
that
into it
was
for
something that
sure.
was really unique. But I think overall it went really well. I think that I learned a lot, you learned a lot, and I'm glad you brought it up today about comps, because you do have to look at it a couple different ways when you look at something like that. And it also proves, when you look at properties that are sitting there, or an agent that maybe isn't as experienced and didn't take the same approach and just tries to come up with either a dollar per foot for the property. I mean, and that was another thing, is that the actual structure of the home was like 3,600 square feet, but it
Hmm.
had like two add-ons and additions to it, right?
Yeah.
That didn't hold a lot of weight. I mean, the sunroom was cool, but the back room that was added on, just for the hot tub, didn't
Hmm.
make a lot of logical sense to
Hmm.
the, to other people.
Right.
So you have to take those things in consideration, and you can't just look at it quickly from a dollar per foot or a acre value and say, oh, here's your value.
Yeah.
Like, you really have to kind of back into it. And then as we're sitting there, we had to kind of back into, okay, if somebody were to buy the home as is, what would it cost to renovate this home? And I kind of ran a number at like $100 a foot, $360,000, just to try to get somewhat of an idea that we could back into it and back out the math
Hmm.
to see how an investor would think about buying the property, right?
Yep.
So I think that's what you got to do, is put on your thinking hat and think of all the different possibilities in that
All the
situation.
aspects. Yeah. So it's going to be fun. I hope I get to work with them. Like I said, it's a former coworker, and I want to take care of her parents and do what's best. And they're just a sweet couple, and it's fun messing with all those cars too. And seeing a 1948 Ford Coupe and I don't know, what was that, 51 Packard and a
Yep.
67, I think, Ford Fairlane, plus about six different random Mercedes through the years. So it was a really, really cool experience, and we'll hopefully get to keep updating you on that. Well, Tavis, go do your thing at the barbershop and get freshened up. If you have not yet, please like and subscribe. Check us out on YouTube. Share this with a friend. We're trying to do the best we can to get this information out to people. And I hope to be coming to you with a little bit more social stuff and information on this end as I dive headfirst into a full-time entrepreneurial experience. And I will for sure keep you updated on that. So until next time, have a great day.